It is Live Bold and Boss Up. Guys, today we are live at the Mahaffey Theater. We're doing the Powered Up Tampa Bay Tech Fest. Say that a million times. I'm like stumbling over my words here saying that. We have the opportunity to speak with all of these technologists that are up on stage, being the keynote speakers or talking about their very specific spaces that they are experts in. So we get the privilege of talking with them. And our very first conversation is with Arnie Bellini. He is the co-founder and previous CEO of ConnectWise. He actually just sold it for $1.5 billion. He's also so extremely generous and has donated 40,000 to the University of South Florida. Go Bulls. And we get to share and chat with him about, kind of after the fact, right? Looking back and hearing his thoughts on like, what did he think the company was going to do and what was his early plans?
Yeah, because he never anticipated or planned for it to be as big as it got. Like I think him and his brother started it, and he'll tell the whole story, but like didn't even imagine that it would be what he grew it to be. And all of his success has led to all of his very charitable donations, which is just amazing. And to hear his story from himself is very inspiring.
But thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. You're coming off of stage at Powered Up. What was it like? What did you get to speak about? We didn't get the opportunity to listen to you because we were all in setup, but
Okay, great. Yeah. What I got to speak about was the amazing opportunity that we have in the Tampa Bay area for technology and innovation. It, I told my story about how when I started ConnectWise, that everyone told me I had to move to Silicon Valley to be successful. And my position was, no, I really don't want to move. I love Tampa Bay. And I believe that if I just plant my business right here in the fertile soil of Tampa Bay, that it will grow. And it did. And so we were the very first unicorn in the Tampa Bay area. The company sold for, $1.5 billion. We made 74 millionaires. A lot of those millionaires have now gone on and started their own businesses. And so it was my way of and the reason I did that and built the company and made sure that we had plenty of millionaires upon the sale of the company was because I was taking a playbook out of Silicon Valley's success. And so the company that started Silicon Valley was Shockley Semiconductor Laboratories. It was the first company making semiconductors, and they just happened to have moved to California and started in Silicon Valley. From there, there were the treacherous eight that left there because Mr. Shockley was not the best employer. They didn't like working for him, and those eight people ended up forming Intel. And then AMD started from that. And so it happened from one company. And so I analyzed Silicon Valley and I said, what made Silicon Valley work? And it's like I traced it all the way back to Shockley. And I said, okay, Arnie, what you want to do is you want to be the Shockley Semiconductor of Tampa Bay, except you don't want to be a jerk like Dr. Shockley was, and you don't want people leaving because they're mad. You want people leaving because they're ready for their next challenge, right? And so we did a really great job and still do at ConnectWise of developing management level people, giving them opportunities, experience, education, management training, so they were super effective at ConnectWise, but if and when they left, that they would be able to contribute to the Tampa Bay community by being that higher level talent base that every one of the tech startups is looking for. And so it's really been very satisfying to me to see that, I mean, it's worked and it's working and it continues to work. So that's a little bit of what I shared with everyone and let them know. It's like, look, we're really in a great place here in Tampa Bay. When I moved here to Tampa Bay, there were 85 in 1972. There were only 85,000 computers in the world, and only 37 of them were connected to the internet, which was called ARPANET at the time. So it's like, look at where we've come
right.
since then. It's like it's kind of
So far.
insane to
Well,
see where we've come
Tampa
from
as
there.
as just that entity, that city has come a long way since then too.
Oh yeah.
It's insane.
Well, 900,000, 72, it was 900,000 was our population. And now we sit in Tampa Bay, and now we sit at 3.4 million. And we're adding another million in the next 12 months. So
Right.
it's like we're on the rise in many ways. So lots of people, lots of talent, my deal, I had made a deal with I had made a covenant that if I was successful, that I would give back and in a very meaningful way, not in a minor way, in a very meaningful way. And so, I've always kept that covenant, and it's coming true now because, I never expected to be this successful. I never expected to create a company that would sell for $1.5 billion. That was never the goal. That was never in the cards. It was just, let me have success. You know, you got to realize I came out of college when in the 80s when Wall Street was going nuts and you were seeing Wall Street traders, just taking all these millions of dollars and wasting them on airplanes, escorts, and cocaine. And it was like, this is ridiculous. It's like, why are these people successful? What they're not doing anything good with their success, right?
Right.
So my covenant was, let me be successful. I will do really good things with the success that I'm given. And so that's really what I'm busy doing now. So you asked me earlier, it's like, what am I doing now? It's like, I'm giving back, right? I mean, it's like I'm pumping millions and millions and millions of dollars at this point, over $100 million into the Tampa Bay community to watch it grow and become the next Silicon Valley, which we are marketing now as Cyber Bay, Tampa Bay,
Love
Cyber
it.
Bay, right?
We thank you for that because everyone's going to really appreciate that. Everyone in the business community, for sure. Yeah. When you started ConnectWise, what was the purpose? Like, what was your goal, at least in the beginning? And where was that kind of click where it was like, oh, this is humming. This
No,
is
I didn't start ConnectWise. It started me. Like my brother and I started a computer business in town when PCs first hit. See, now remember, my father brought technology to Tampa Bay. So we moved here in 1972. Again, there were only 85,000 computers in the world. And now Tampa was big enough, 900,000 people, where it made sense to, let's open up an IBM branch office here because there's enough business. GTE was in town. Likes Brothers was growing. Government agencies needed computers. Not many people could afford them, but there was enough in the Tampa Bay area at the time. And so I've always seen it as our family's role was we brought technology to Tampa Bay. And so I still feel like that's our family's duty is to keep evolving the technology footprint in the Tampa Bay area. And so that was kind of the dream that I put forth when I started the company, but I didn't ConnectWise came out of necessity. I built a really successful David, my brother and I built a very successful computer company taking care of all IT needs for small to mid-sized businesses. And the PC had just come out. So like every small to mid-sized business needed PCs. And so we were selling them PCs, and then the internet happened, and then it was like, okay, then we were connecting the PCs, and we were converting all of their manual systems to digital systems. And so that whole evolution was happening, and we were the ones ushering it in. And so we had so much business in Tampa Bay that we couldn't handle it all. And so we needed a software platform that we could build our business on, but there wasn't anything out there. And so begrudgingly, I started creating that, right? It's like, oh, I'll do it for my own business. And I created something that let us scale very quickly as a business. And then I showed it to friends around the country that were in the same business, and they all forced me to sell them a copy, which I didn't want to do because I was like, I don't want to build a support team. I don't, but it just was, something that just sort of happened to me. ConnectWise is something that happened to me in my pursuit of just making my own business successful. So it was an afterthought, which is really interesting. And it became a global phenomenon that ended up with at the height, at least when I sold the business, and I still have a large stake in it, but when I sold my majority stake in the business, we were in 60 countries. We had $250 million of reoccurring revenue, and we were at 1,200 employees. So, and I just never saw any of that coming. None of it. None of it. But it's a great surprise. I think it may be the power of sort of setting your mind on something, making a covenant, sticking to it, and just believing in yourself. And I think that's a great lesson for all tech entrepreneurs. So yeah.
That sounds so simple, but I think that's really true and effective. You have to believe in yourself, kind of heads down. I feel like you were pretty much heads down and just dedicated to building that.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
You're right about the heads down part. It's like I literally didn't know what was going on with the rest of the world as I was building the company. And I think a lot of especially tech entrepreneurs are that way, because in the tech space, you don't get to build slowly. You have to go fast. And then everything that you built is usurped by the next wave of technology that comes out. So you got to rebuild it.
How
you got to rebuild
frustrating,
it.
maybe.
You got to rebuild it, and you got to rebuild it, and you got to every time technology comes out, you've got to then rebuild and use that latest and greatest technology. And so what's really interesting about where we are now in the industry is that next huge wave of technology is hitting shore right now, and that is artificial intelligence. And it changes everything. So it doesn't even matter. I mean, I wonder if software, I just wonder if we're going to be dealing with applications anymore. I think you're just going to be talking into a computer and it's just going to do things for you or file things for you, or it's going to be a completely different world. So everything that already exists is up for grabs. Everything.
I was going to ask you what you thought was going to be, obviously artificial intelligence, but how that is going to shape the next couple of years, and like what tech is going to look like, and companies like ConnectWise, how do you shift like to keep up with all the technology?
Well, it's a great question. How do you shift? I think a lot of companies are not going to make the shift. It's just like every other shift in technology. It's like some people jump on that next wave and some people don't. And those that don't ride the wave that they were on all the way to shore and then to bankruptcy, or they sell the business, right? Typically, they'll sell the business if they don't adapt to the next wave of technology. So I know that in the case of ConnectWise, they're all over artificial intelligence. They're jumping on that next wave. So I live on Clearwater Beach on the Gulf of America. Okay. And so I always am looking out and I'm seeing sets of waves coming in. It always reminds me that this is the way the technology world works. It's like you've got sets of waves that come in. Those are the technological waves. That first wave that came in, I caught, which was the personal computer revolution, right? I made the first job I took out of USF when I graduated from the MBA program was with Price Waterhouse as a technology consultant in 1981. And I convinced him to buy the first personal computer that was offered in the Tampa Bay area. And I could do that because my dad was branch manager for IBM. So I had my partner call my father. I said, tell him you want a PC and he'll get you one. So, I mean, at the time, you couldn't even get your hands on a PC. There was no way because they were so popular when they first came out. So we had the first PC. They put it into the Park Tower building, 29th floor, downtown Tampa. And we never left the 29th floor after that. We just kept playing with that computer because, here we were, our regular day jobs were working with mainframe computers where we had zero control. We were just literally begging the people who ran the computer to run our jobs, to print our printouts. That's how we had to get things done. You didn't have control of anything, and you had to wait hours to get your job to run. You had to wait another couple hours to get it printed out. So it wasn't very productive, but the technology was so transformative that it was worth waiting all of that time. So for us, we're dealing with data rooms that are just almost like soup Nazis. If you don't talk to them the right way, they don't load your job. If you don't talk to them, they don't print your job. So they had the ability to do that to us. So when we first got the PC at Price Waterhouse, we couldn't believe it. We put in a 360K floppy drive into the system and watched the operating system come up. It's like, oh my God. Of course, it took three 360K floppy drives, to load an operating system. But then you got that C prompt. And it was like, holy cow, that's the computer. We have the computer. It's ours, right? So for me, that was so, I don't know. It was almost like, it was almost being born again, I guess, in a way. It was like sort of like I realized that the whole world was going to change. Once that C colon prompt came up for the first time on that PC for me in 1981, everything changed. I I went home. My dad, now remember, my dad's branch manager for IBM in town. So he's the guy that knows everything about computers. I'm just this kid out of college that just played with a PC. And I went home and I told my father, I said, hey, look, Pa, I finally got to play with one of those PCs. Those things are amazing. It's like, I think I want to quit Price Waterhouse and start my own
Oh, I'm
company.
sure he loved hearing that.
He hated that.
Yeah, of course.
He hated that. And, I knew when I was in trouble because he would call me Arnie Barney. It's like, so he said, Arnie Barney, look, Arnie, those we're going to make, I mean, the PC, we're going to make maybe 5,000 of those. We had to make it. There's this company in Cupertino that came out with a personal computer. And we're IBM. We had to respond. We had to have something to respond. So we're going to make 5,000 of these things worldwide. They're really for just hobbyists. And that was IBM's
Wow.
position on the PC. And
Wow.
that's, as you know, they ended up losing, they ended up giving away an amazing opportunity to Gates, just by letting him develop the operating system, and they didn't care about the software. It was all about hardware for them, right? So that's all about the hardware. He told me that, Arnie, it's all about the hardware. Mainframes are where it's at. These PCs are just for hobbyists. Don't quit Price Waterhouse. You'll make partner in 10 years. Do not quit. And I was like, well, that's the problem. I made partner in 10 years.
Yes.
I think this is going to be an amazing revolution, and I want to be a part of it, right? Because this is power to the people finally. And I had just experienced that myself. And I just knew from my own experience as a technology consultant at Price Waterhouse that things were going to have to change, because that was too much power in too few people's hands, and that the computing just had to advance. And I had seen at that time, it's like, to me, it was like, well, at some point, everyone's going to have this in their hand, right? So it wasn't hard to see that even back then in 1981. It wasn't a stretch to say, well, okay, we took a computer from an IBM 360, which takes an entire room,
Right.
down to this PC that looks like a sewing machine sitting in front of me that I have total control over. I'm like, we're going to keep making this smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's like, eventually everyone's going to have one of these things. Well, today, there are 8 billion computers in the world today, and there are 8 billion people in the world today. So not everyone has a computer, but the numbers match, right? So that day that I foresaw in 1981 is finally here today in
Well,
in 2024.
That's amazing that
2025.
you did see that and you had that kind of vision about what these PCs were going to do and how it was going to evolve. How do you see, or do you see anything kind of coming in from AI, right? Like, what does the business forefront look like with AI coming in, with all this, like the chat GPTs and the perplexity AI and all of these different
Well,
panels?
okay, so I would say, so the answer is no one knows. And I certainly don't either. And I'm not going to claim that I could. And by the way, what I foresaw back in 1981 was obvious. Like, if you're in the industry, you've already dealt with the way the industry is. And then when you see what it can become, it's just going to move in that direction. So that was a simple one. I think AI is in the same place where it's like, well, obviously we're going to add AI to everything. So let's see what it evolves to. I think it will be, if you go back in history, the advent of writing is what changed everything. Uh, and you know, thousands of years ago, there were only a few people that were writing anything, and that's how we communicated all knowledge, and that's what transformed everything, right? Well, we then finally wrote down everything that we know. We put all of our stories in novels, and we now have digitized everything that we know, everything that we've ever written, every novel that's ever been created. It's all digital, it's all online. Every transaction, every bit of music, every bit of video, it's all digital. It's all zeros and ones. Okay. And so we've spent the last half century digitizing everything, all of our knowledge. What's interesting is now we have artificial intelligence that can look at all of that we've digitized and say, "Oh, I can breeze through all of this. I can identify patterns. I can understand all of this. I can organize all of this." And so, large language models are amazingly good at doing that, and AI is evolving very quickly. So I would say that you're going to see AI evolve in steps, just like you watched from, from a whole room, a computer being in a whole room to, being in your hand and being more powerful than the most powerful supercomputer of 1996. So like even the most powerful supercomputer of 1996, your iPhone that you're holding in your hand is more powerful than that. Right. So you just start thinking about that. AI is going to be exponentially greater change than what we've already seen. And so, I guess I would say it's going to be running our lives. It already is running our lives. You don't ever use a paper map. You use Google Maps. We all do.
100%.
It's like that's artificial intelligence. The largest artificial intelligence project in the world today is actually the autonomous driving project of Tesla. That's the largest AI project in the world today. And, that's parlaying into, so once he learns how to do that, oh, that's the same. Oh, I can apply all that same stuff to robotics. Oh, great. Well, he's done that, right? So now we've got the Tesla robot's going to come out next year for $30,000 and it will have AI downloaded into it. It'll have all the world's knowledge downloaded into its brain. It'll be walking around your house doing things for you. Okay. But it will also, and I'm just going to say we're going to be dealing with devices that are way, way, way smarter than us, right? And I would propose to say that everyone says, oh, when are we going to get to artificial general intelligence? Like, we're there.
Yeah, for sure.
When are we going to get to artificial super intelligence? People say, oh, 5 years, 10 years. It's like, no, 24 months. This is all going to happen very fast. And the other thing that I would say is, and we don't even know how artificial intelligence actually works because you can't really look under the hood. So this is the first time that we are launching into a whole new technological wave that we're all jumping into head first because you can make money doing it. But it's very, very going to be very interesting. The path forward, I guess, is the easiest way I would put it. I don't see dystopia. I see utopia, but it's going to be one or the other or a combination of the two. That's what AI will deliver.
I was going to ask that, what your thoughts were, like whether it was a good or bad thing. Yeah.
It'll be both.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, so
We're all
like,
going to become.
what's already being used for both, right? So it's like you're just going to see more of the same, right? So it's like, artificial intelligence is probably one of the greatest tools that hackers can now use to hack into your system, right? Well, that's a bad use for it, right? Artificial intelligence is also what we at Connect Secure are working on to close all of those holes, right? So at Connect Secure, and you can check them out at connectsecure.com. Great vulnerability management tool, super affordable, but we are gathering all of the data for all of these systems, and we're actually using artificial intelligence now to look at the data that we gather from our vulnerability scans and to identify patterns that show us that could be a footprint, that could be a pattern that represents a future hack or a lay on the land attack that's waiting to be triggered. So AI can be used in both ways, and it always will be used in both ways. You're going to see it used in warfare. You already are seeing it used in warfare. So it's just an interesting, crazy world that we're heading into.
Thank you so much. This has been an amazing insight. I love hearing about your story and just insights on technology and where it's come and
where it's going.
Yeah.
Congratulations on all your success as well.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for all that you do for our community, for, Tampa Bay in general. You've made a big impact.
Well, it's a great place to live. My father, when he worked for IBM, for IBM kids, IBM doesn't mean International Business Machines. It means I've been moved. And so we moved all over the country. We moved from New York to New Jersey, back up to New York, down to New Orleans, and then over here to Tampa. But what my father said when we moved to Tampa in 1972 is he said, oh, Tampa is so wonderful. We're never moving again. Right. He promised the family, we're never moving again because Tampa Bay is so wonderful. And we never have left and we never will. And we've got our second generation of Bellinis here in Tampa Bay. We love it here. We're going to do everything we can to make this place as wonderful as possible. And we're happy to do it.
Thank you, Arnie.
Thank you so much.